How do you make cinematic shots? The 2023 animated film, The Super Mario Bros. Movie, co-produced by Illumination and Nintendo, has a scene that's a good example of this, where Princess Peach shows Mario how to navigate a training obstacle course. In cinematic shot number 1, the scene establishes the overall environmental context within this wide shot, revealing the orientation of the obstacle course. We can determine the horizon line of the shot from the perspective cues of the platforms around the course, so the camera is a little below eye level for where Princess Peach and Mario are standing at the center of the frame. A wide-angle lens is likely being used to compose the shot, conveying the enormous scale of the course and raising the physical stakes for Mario. In cinematic shot number 2, Peach starts to tackle the course by running away from Mario and toward the first marker points. In the foreground, on screen right, at the lower corner of the frame, we start to see the first spikes on a nearby platform. These elements are slightly out of focus to help create a sense of spatial depth. Peach is essentially running toward the camera, growing in proportion toward the camera lens, moving in Z-space. The background of the Mushroom Kingdom appears in the distance, also slightly out of focus. We can see the sky plane at the top of the frame, informing us that the camera is placed somewhat close to the level of the spikes in the foreground. In cinematic shot number 3, the camera tracks with Peach as she runs across the platform, and the camera is tilted at a Dutch angle to create a dynamic feeling for the shot. The camera is low to the ground plane of the platform, creating a slight upshot, so we see some of the floating platforms above Peach's head. The camera lens is likely a wider angle lens to reveal the space around Peach as she runs along the obstacle course. The break pattern of the platform on screen left in the lower corner of the frame is slightly blurred to help create a sense of spatial depth. The background elements of the Mushroom Kingdom in the distance are also out of focus, so our eyes are drawn to Peach as she runs. In cinematic shot number 4, the camera is placed high above the ground plane, looking down almost in a bird's eye point of view as Peach leaps past one of the chain chomps in the obstacle course. The composition of the shot allows us to clearly see Peach's pose as she makes the jump, but also we can clearly read her facial expression and sense of glee as she does it. This helps clue us into her state of mind at this point of the action. The perspective cues of the platform on screen left at the lower corner of the frame help us to see a 3-point perspective grid within the shot. In cinematic shot number 5, Peach has landed on another platform just after jumping over the chain chomp. The camera is tilted at a Dutch angle again as she runs away from the camera lens, but having her turn her head to the camera allows us to continue reading her facial expression. The background elements of the Mushroom Kingdom are slightly out of focus to create spatial depth. We can gauge the horizon line from the perspective cues of the platform that Peach runs on, as well as the cues from nearby platforms. And this helps us to see that the camera is placed relatively close to the ground plane of the platform Peach runs on. In cinematic shot number 6, the camera follows behind Peach as she leaps and falls downward through a series of platforms in the obstacle course. This is a thrilling shot that almost feels like being on a roller coaster as you descend down a curve in the track. The perspective cues of the neighboring platforms help us to see the 3-point perspective grid within the shot. As the camera tracks with Peach, the camera movement helps us to experience what she's feeling through the action. In cinematic shot number 7, Peach lands on another platform and continues to run across quickly. The camera is placed below the ground plane of the platform she's on, so we see her in an upshot, revealing some of the platforms floating in space above her. A series of spikes appear in the foreground, slightly out of focus to create spatial depth. As she runs from screen left to screen right, Peach has a determined look on her face, which clues us into her state of mind at this point in the scene. In cinematic shot number 8, we follow the previous shot by cutting into this close-up on her face where we can clearly read her determined expression. This shot choice helps to punctuate what she's thinking and feeling. Peach is nearing the end of the obstacle course and she wants to complete it and make a big finish. So this shot helps us cement that emotional beat in our minds, and we'll carry that into the following shots. The background elements of the Mushroom Kingdom are mostly out of focus here, so we zero in our eyes on Peach's face. So much of her acting here is conveyed by her eyes, eyebrows, and smile. In cinematic shot number 9, the camera tracks behind Peach once again as she leaps up and clears several flying bullet bills. Peach is flying up and down in an arc through the space, so we also see the horizon line change within the shot, as well as the view of the Mushroom Kingdom in the background. Placing the camera behind Peach also helps us to see the oncoming mushroom flag on the pole, which cues us into seeing this as her end goal. In cinematic shot number 10, we see Peach after she has tagged the mushroom flag and she's settled on a resting platform. The bottom of the camera frame is a little below her waist, and we see her satisfied expression conveyed through her face as well as the posing of her hands and arms. The background elements are mostly out of focus to create spatial depth. There's a slight bend to the flagpole on screen right, which might suggest the curvature of a wide-angle lens being used here to compose the shot. Peach is looking towards screen right in a 3/4 view of her face. So overall, these technical descriptions of the shots in the short action scene help to convey how the filmmakers created cinematic visuals as Peach navigates the obstacle course. We see that there are a familiar set of tools used when creating these shots, and these are also considered when making a shot structure to have one shot flow into the next to tell the story. Thinking of these elements as ingredients is one way to break down a scene and uncover its cinematic elements.